Hi, my name is Rogger Castell. I'm from Rogers Reef Food, showing you my tank, 265 gallons here in Weston, Florida. I hope you enjoy it. So I've been keeping reef aquariums since the age of 20 and keeping aquariums in general since the age of 7. So this has been a progression to get to this point of about 40 years of experience of reef keeping and fish keeping in general. My previous tank was coming out of this wall behind me. It was a room divider, but it really made the room, both sides of the room, too small. So I decided to get the tank built against the wall instead. And in the process also, I was able to do things that I wanted to do in the tank, previous to this one. One of them, get a rimless tank. This tank was manufactured here in Florida by Reef Savvy. And the other thing that I wanted to get is I wanted to make it as maintenance-free as possible. So the nature of my business and also I'm a father of 4 girls, so I need to make sure that the tank is able to maintain itself even if I'm not here at home. One of the first things that I wanted to make sure is that SPSs will thrive in the tank. I'm a big nut about SPSs, and I wanted to make sure that the rock formations were low enough to allow them to grow, and at the same time I wanted certain things that I couldn't get from live rocks. So I got together with a masonry expert, did the rocks out of aragonite from the Bahamas, and I gave them the specifications. As far as the design of the rocks, I took it off the yin and the yang sign, and basically, I wanted something that tapers down so that the tritus could fall off the rock. I wanted something on the rock to be, the surface of the outside of the rock, I want it to be smooth so that it doesn't trap the tritus in there. That was one of my biggest issues with all the tanks, that I had to go with the turkey baster and get the tritus off. I also wanted to be elevated from the floor and have at least 1.5 to 2 inches off the floor, and I wanted to look somehow a little natural and the same, so it's hard to accomplish all that. But when I saw that yin and the yang, I said, like, that's something I would like, a little bit of a zen in the tank, something different, and at the same time it was accomplishing all the other things. He also made some holes on the rocks on top and on the sides, all over them, to allow fish to come in and out, and the flow also to go in and out. It allowed me to put some corals inside the rocks, as I'm sure that we'll be able to show you on the inside part, so I'm utilizing that. This is my first tank that is bare bottom. I've never had a tank that was bare bottom, but on my previous tank, I had sand, and I started having problems over time with sand becoming old, and I started taking it off, and I noticed that the tank got a lot better once I took most of the sand off. I couldn't take everything off because most of the rocks were sitting on sand, so I didn't want to disturb the rock formation, but I took all around it, and it did look better. So on this tank, I decided that I was going to try a bare bottom approach. And so far, I must say, I do miss the look of the sand, but I do enjoy the extra real estate that it gives me on the bottom. As you will be able to see, I'm able to put corals that are encrusting corals, and they're actually encrusting on the bottom. Now this bottom is not glass, it's made out of ABS, and that was also a special request that I had for Reef Savvy. I didn't want a glass bottom. I was afraid of of a rock or a coral tumbling down and making a crack on the glass or even a scratch on it. So with the hopes that eventually coralline will cover it, or the corals that are growing on it will cover it. The tank is lidded by 2 400-watt Ushios metal halides. Then I also have 3 Mitras LX 7200s and 2 Reef Brights that are 72 inches long. I only run the metal halides right now for approximately 3 hours. I am considering lowering that to 2 hours, and we'll see what happens. On the canopy, I have a exhaust that takes all the hot air out of the metal halides and puts it out in the street, and that helps a lot. It very much covers the whole tank. By the way, the dimensions of the tank are 72 by 36 deep by 20 tall, and that gives us approximately, with the volume of the water in the sump, approximately 265 gallons. It's where I calculate, more or less. At least, you know, when I do dosing or anything like that, I base it on 265 gallons. And the bottom of the tank, I have a Rogger exclusive Dream Box together with a Deluxe 200 skimmer and a Red Dragon 230 pump. The 230 pump is running at about 200 watts as opposed to 230. I found that was plenty of flow, and I can always increase it as the corals grow. I'll be able to increase it, but for now I'm just running at 200. And the inlet of the skimmer, it's connected from the outside, so it's drawing air from the outside, and the cap of the skimmer is connected to a drain that drains all the skimmage outside. So very little maintenance on the skimmer, other than, you know, taking the cap off every once in a while and cleaning it. The other part of the tank, it's my computer controller, which is done by an Aquatronica. It's a fairly old computer. It's one of the first computers that I ever got. It's Italian, and they work very, very good. I like it a lot, and it's very reliable. And this is their newest model that they have, which is a touch controller. So it has a touch screen on it that allows me to, you know, work on things real fast. And once you get a hang of it, you can pretty much do things, you know, very fast, to turn on things or, you know, turn off things. And it also has some programs on the top, programmable buttons, and those there, you know, I have them programmed to turn off the highlights or off or on, and also the pumps, you know, in case of, you know, I need to turn the pumps off. The chemistry I keep through a modified zeolite system by Fauna Marine, and basically it composed of several bacteria that go in. In this case, the bacteria comes in little bowls. They're called bactobulbs. Those bacteria basically keep all the nitrates down in the tank. And then they have 2 other products called Coral Balance and Coral Vitality, and those basically keep the rest of the nutrients down. My nutrients are pretty much controlled by that. I don't have refugium or algae scrubbers or anything. As far as the temperature of the tank, I keep it at 76 degrees. And it doesn't vary much from day to day. I have a chiller that it's connected outside of the house through a tube that goes through the wall, and it loops through the water change, and it comes back inside here, and it brings the cold water from outside. The chiller does not work a lot. I have an actual controller that tells me, you know, the times that it goes on and off, and so it's working about 2 hours a day. And it's mostly in the time where the metal highlights are on. The rest of the time, the chiller is not on. I also have the RODI system outside the house, and everything is enclosed in a shed that you'll be able to see. The water change feature in this tank, it's also something that I've been doing from like 2 previous tanks, and it's something that I will never do any tank without it. And it's basically you know, press a button and the water change happens, basically. I have a drain in the sump that it's at level with the level of the last chamber of the sump, the one where you usually keep the ATO sensor on. And the drain, basically, it's at the same level. And when I do a water change and the water is ready outside, the computer basically opens an actuator valve, a 3-way actuator valve outside, and it starts pumping the water, the freshly made water, into the main display up here. And what that does, it elevates the sump level, forcing the water out into that drain and outside. So if I pump 50 gallons of water, which is my usual water change, if I pump 50 gallons of water here, it displaces 50 gallons of water down in the sump. It takes approximately 2.5 minutes for this water change to happen. And it's seamless. I mean, it just, once the water stops entering here, it naturally stops going out down in the sump as well. My tank is a SPS predominant tank. A lot of the corals here are from my old tank. Some of them are from my own cuttings from older corals, and some of them I have purchased as larger colonies from people that had grown them from fracs. I wanted to make sure that in this tank everything was grown from fracs, and it wasn't just an environmental type of deal, but it was also that I am a firm believer that corals that are tank raised do a lot better in captivity than fresh wild colonies. Most of the flow comes from 3 power heads that I have there. 2 of them are Tunsi Streams 3 on both ends of the tank, and 1 is in the middle, and they are controlled independently. They fluctuate between 30 and 100% throughout the day in intervals of 15 minutes. So they're never on at 100%, either one of them, for more than 15 minutes. And then, they ramp down for another 15. They stay on the lower setting for 15, and then they start ramping up again. So they do that the whole day except for the nighttime, which the range is a lot less. I think the highest is 30%, and the lowest goes down to 10%. So it's a little less flow at night. And I do that mostly because since the live rock doesn't have a lot of hiding places, it gives the fish a little bit of less flow to try to fight so that they can rest a little bit. The corals right now are, except for 1 coral that I need to get back. I was fortunate enough on my old fish tank, when I sold it, Worldwide Corals purchased 1 of the colonies, and later on they sent a piece of that colony to Tyree, and between the both of them, they named it the Castells banana, the Worldwide Corals Castells banana table. And so I know either from Lou or from Tyree, I'm gonna have to get 1 of those back in my tank. I love that coral, and I'm happy to see that it has been propagated. And I'm very proud and thankful that they used my name on it and gave the recognition that it came from my tank. The livestock, as far as fish is concerned, it's very low right now. We were fortunate here in Florida just a few weeks ago to have a hurricane pass through, and I had most of my fish in a quarantine system that I had set up on the corner of the tank. And what happened was that we lost power for about 33 hours or 34 hours. And the first 10 of those 33 hours, I couldn't get any type of power in the tanks, and as far as generators are concerned. And I put all my effort to make sure that the main display, which had no fish, survived because of the corals. I thought in my view that they were going to be the ones going first because of the heat and everything. So I spent all my effort, putting floating ice on the display and doing all kinds of things, and I totally did not pay much attention to the fish, and ultimately I paid the ultimate price. I lost almost all my fish that I had already up to then. And the only fish that survived from there was the black tang here and 1 of the purple tanks, and everything else, basically all the rest of the fish have come from tanks from my friends that basically either lost their tanks as well during the hurricane or were forced to evacuate the tanks because of the loss of power. So at this time, I'm actually doing a tank transfer method on two new batches of fish, and there are different stages right now. One of the vets has fish that will be coming out on the 28th of this month, so in a few days. It should be, they should be ready to be put in observation, and I have set up in my garage a quarantine tank, and that's where they will go from the tank transfer method. The rest of the fish are mostly comprised of tanks and wrasses. I do have one fish that I get asked a lot, the little clown trigger, and it is a challenging fish. It could be something that could definitely eat crabs and the snails, but I don't have any crabs, and the snails are able to pretty much at this age shelter themselves from him. There will be a point and he will, where he will have to be moved into a bigger tank, and probably a fish only tank. But in the meantime, it will be a couple of years before that happens, and I'm plan to enjoy him. He's a real joy to see, and very colorful. I love that, and triggers are one of my favorite fishes, together with angels, and he definitely displays all the personalities of the triggers, which is very bold and just lots and lots of personality. There's one fish in particular that I'm very proud to have. I found him just basically as a I wasn't looking for a mandarin. I went to visit one of my customers, and I spotted the mandarin in their tanks, a fresh shipment coming in of fish. And I noticed that it had different markings. It was a spotted mandarin, but it had different markings, and I'm sure we'll be able to capture, when he comes out, and we'll be able to show it to you. He's a special fish. I was very, very, very debating in my head whether if I should get him or not, because the tank is fairly young. This tank was only, it only saw water on February this year. So it's been up and running for 8 months. And the accelerated process of doing the seal light system has allowed me to get the corals growing fast and going at a rate that I really wasn't expecting. It was seeded with pots at the beginning. I got a little bottle of commercial pots, and and I have seen them from time to time in the sump and in the main display. So when I got the mandarin, I was really worried that he wasn't going to have enough food to sustain himself, and so I started feeding my tank heavily for him to be able to get some of the nutrients down in the bottom, and it worked. The mandarin has been now here for about 4 or 5 months now. Has grown quite a bit, and he keeps himself active all day and feeding. Nobody bothers him, as it's not natural with mandarin fish. Most fishes stay away from them, so he is doing great, and I'm very proud of him. I hope that we can get a good shot of him. Then the rest of the corals are comprised of basically zoanthids, and I have 2 clams, a blue squamosa and a crocea, a blue crocea, and I have also LPSs that are situated in the back of the rock formation, mainly because that's where the least amount of flow happens. The flow could get, with SPS, it could be very, very strong at times in the tank. And from my experience, I prefer to have LPSs on a lower to medium flow pattern. One thing that I can recommend for you guys are into SPSs and want to get into SPSs is to check your alkalinity like on a regular basis. I can't stress that enough. I always, when I talk in the club meetings or with other reefers about what to do to be successful about keeping SPS corals, the one thing that I always try to stress is the importance of keeping your alkalinity in check. Now there is devices that can do that for yourself. I don't have one. I don't have one yet. I am not the first generation type of guy. I don't like to get stuff when it's first generation. I like to wait a little bit, like I did with, for example, with the Zeolite system. That type of low nutrient has been around for a long time, but I never really jumped on the wagon. And I'm pretty glad I did. I'm very happy with the products and how it has performed in the tank. There is still a lot that I need to learn about it. I'm learning every day something different. I also see a lot of people that have tried it and did not like it, and I can see through the comments why is that happened. I have had my mishaps as well with it, like losing the corals colors for a little bit. That happens when finally the system hit rock bottom as far as the nutrients. But if you keep at it and you start tweaking, and I was fortunate enough to be able to have sent my water to do a test, like the type of test that Fauna Marine provides. And it's a very thorough test of the water, and it tells you in depth where all your nutrients and microelements and where are they situated, where are you sitting on. So I was able to figure out what I needed to add to get those colors back in the corals. And when I did, it was a very rewarding situation. So for the chemistry of the tank, I do basically, my main concern is the alkalinity, and I try to keep that one at around 8 to 8.5. And magnesium, it's usually around 1500, 1450 to 1500. The calcium, it's about 490 at this point. And I'm fine if it's a little lower, anywhere from 425 to 450 will be fine, but right now it's 490. The rest of the nutrients, I have undetectable nitrates and undetectable phosphates. When I measure for phosphorus, the new type of test in HANA, at least for me, it usually takes around 4, which it's equivalent to 0.003, I think, or something in that range. So it's very, very low, very, very difficult to determine exactly what the phosphate is, because there is a degree also of error on these test kits. But it is both of the nutrients, basic nutrients, the nitrates and phosphates, are undetectable in the tank. So once again, this is Rogger Castells from Rogger's Reef Food, and it has been a pleasure to bring you all into my house and show you my tank. I hope to hear from you guys, and I'm looking forward to answer any questions you have.
We're knee-deep in this install, and I just realized Brett's missing. We should have Brett here cleaning up. That guy disappears every time we're at a show. I'm gonna go find Brett. I'm smelling something good. I decided to take a break from the install, and I came across a chef making fish food.
Basically what I do is I use fresh ingredients, all kinds of seafoods.
You make it all fresh.
And everything is fresh.
I can't believe these fish are eating better than me. I had a freaking bologna sandwich for lunch.
How about we put some gloves on and you help me?
Let's put some gloves on. Let's do it.
Fresh shrimp.
Fresh shrimp. I love fresh shrimp.
We're gonna
Okay.
Put that in the bowl over here.
All right.
Next one we have some lobster. The tail of it has already been processed here, so we're gonna add that to that.
Okay.
Fresh clams. We have a combination here
Dude, what
of
are you doing?
octopus.
What was it doing? I'm making fish food. This is Roger. It's my partner Wade. You want to make some food?
What's with the lobster?
I already got dibs. I got dibs on the lobster.
Oh, you grabbed
I already
the
called the
lobster,
lobster, right?
Fish must be real happy eating like this all the time.
My fish are very happy.
Oh, my fish will love this.
Hey, listen, I want to say thank you very much. You know, I'm gonna shake your hand this way.
You're
That
very
was
welcome.
awesome.
You're
This is a
very
great
welcome.
experience.
Thank you.
Come on, let's go.
I'll meet you guys over there later.
All right, you got it. We'll
Thank
see
you.
you soon.
Thank you.
Great.